ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And she came back with a bunch of pictures and a presentation and her thoughts on what's happening with the pigs. So we'll just let you go to it, Jana, and we'll see what you've seen.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Just a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in Germany. Did my horticulture diploma in Germany, as well as some environmental studies, which are based on agriculture. So 2006, I came to Canada and worked at crop research breeding in Lacombe, Alberta. And then after several years, I decided to go into the industry, and I worked for Farmers Edge for a few years and actually obtained my CCA at that point. And after everything went a little bit sideways, I decided to farm full-time with my husband. And then since 2019, I basically came to that whole regenerative agriculture approach. And it's a whole bunch of unlearning and relearning and more relearning. So when I heard about the pigs, so my husband and I, we farm close to Wetaskiwin. We farm 5,000 acres, conventional, and we're trying to decrease our inputs and do it a whole different way. I'm trying to produce some compost with worms and a bioreactor, but that is still not enough volume. So when Greg told me about the pigs and I got in contact with Thomas Köhne, that sounded something doable we can actually manage here on the farm. And yeah, I haven't been in Germany for 7 years, so there was a whole bunch of visiting my family, but I really, really wanted to go down to Austria and see Family Hubman and his family and get an idea what this is all about. I mean, I have seen Brian Sparks' farm, which is absolutely incredible what he has done the last couple of years, and I wanted just to talk to another person and establish a personal relationship. That's very important to me. It's all this chat group thing is not really my stick. I need personal relationships. So it was actually planned that Greg is coming to Germany the beginning, well, in January. This is why the Germany group is existing. And then that fell through. And I went there in the beginning of March. So there was supposed to be a tour in the beginning of March, which fell through, and it was rescheduled the end of March, which fell through as well, due to family circumstances. So I basically was on my own, and Thomas Hubman offered me to come down, and Thomas Köhne kind of arranged everything. And then I got really sick. So I basically lost my voice, but I still wanted to go down. And I basically talked to them, and I said, this will be a really squeaky conversation we have, but it is that important to me to come. So this was a one-day trip. In the morning down to Austria, 5 hours trip, 5 hours conversation, and 5 hours back. And it was absolutely fantastic. So that just so for the circumstances. So I was on medication. I didn't ask maybe all the questions I should have asked. And I maybe should have taken more pictures, but Thomas is awesome. He's, can you hear me? It says my internet connection is unstable.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, and he's responding really quickly to my answers. So the visit to Family Hubman. Let me see. So Family Hubmans, they have 2 farms. One is in Austria, and it's 140 hectares. It is located close to St. Pölten, which is the lower Austria. These are the Alps. And this is I think you call it Danube or Donau. This is the second largest river in Europe, and it connects actually 10 countries. So they are located right here. It's very hilly. This is not a flat land situation. It's a hilly hilly land. And they have also a farmstead in Slovakia with 260 hectares. And that is approximately 200 kilometers away. Thomas, his brother Andreas, and his Thomas' wife Maria are the staff, the family member staffs, and they have 3 additional hired hands. Thomas has also 3 kids and the 2 boys that are helping quite a bit with the farm. So Sassendorf, that's the little village they live in, is 260 meters above sea level, just to give you an idea. The average rainfall is 500 to 650 millimeters a year. And they do have snow, they do have frost, but nothing we know from Canada. So they absolutely operate with winter crops, and they have cover crops through the winter, which they can actually harvest in the spring, which grow substantial. The soil types, there's quite a variety of soils they're dealing with. It goes from sand to clay and to calcareous soils. The crop rotation is, in the winter, it's winter wheat, winter peas, and then everything there is for cover crops. They have a whole variety of mixtures. And they experiment. They're really, really playful. Let's put it that way. They are playful with their cover crop mixes. And that's the way it should be. And then, so the summer season, crops are corn, wheat, oats, and rye. And basically they use the cover crops through the winter. And then even in the summer, they have some intercropping in the fields. Not always, but they do have, to some degree, some intercrops in the field. They also have some free-range chickens for egg production, which they sell locally. And yeah, they are all the meat from the pigs and the eggs and other products they sell basically in a local, like in 3 local stores, and which I will go into a little bit later. So these are the pigs. They have 1,000 pigs a time in different tents. 60 to 100 pigs per tent, and 2,500 pigs a year. So that is, yeah, that's quite a number. And they feed them basically everything they can get their hands on. How I said, the cover crops, they do with the cover crops some silage or some green feed. They have a mushroom farm close by. That's the picture you see over here. So they feed the mushroom bales, and the pigs absolutely love it. We fed those pieces to the pigs, and they basically fight over it. They have different breeds. Dirk, Petrain, and Berkshire. I think they want to go into more, but we haven't really talked about breeds that much. So this is just one location where we were and where they had tents. It's a little bit like on a hilltop. And all I can say is that there was basically, for the amount of pigs there was basically no smell. And there was no leakage either. The only place we saw actually standing puddles was at the entrance of that area where the tractor goes in and out. They did have 9 millimeters of rain 2 days prior, so it was quite wet. And we went to different fields as well, but the only time I actually got muddy boots was at the entrance area. So that was just incredible. And when they move, maybe you see that, when they move the pigs, they will seed that area where they were right away with winter or summer crop. So this is the watering system for the pigs. So it's quite muddy because it was too low, and they raised it up a little bit for me. So there are some nipples for the pigs. You cannot see them, but they are actually under this mud. They drink off, and whatever they spill, they reuse the water and they keep it in a circle. That way it doesn't freeze even in the winter, and it saves a ton of water. Andreas told me how much, but I honestly forgot again how much water actually a pig needs, but that's a question I can ask them later. So, and you can see down here, how I said, it just rained, and if there is any leakage coming out of the pens, they basically just put a little pile of compost over here where it leaks, and then put more straw in. And yeah, almost no smell. It was no flies, no smell. It was too cold for flies anyways, but there was no smell. It was really impressive. So this cage over here on the other side, that's how they get the pigs in and out. So they lowered into the pen, select the pigs which will be butchered, and then get them out. I found that really interesting, so I took the picture. That's the compost. So this compost pile, he basically just created the day before I came, and it's steamed already. I mean, we are all seeing Brian Sparks' pictures, and we have seen so many pictures from this farm already too, but it was just incredible how fast it goes up in temperature. So I had to buy an EC meter in Germany because I didn't bring mine. I calibrated it, but I wasn't 100% sure if I did it right. And then it's a different instrument than I'm used to. So when I put it in, it basically measured 780 microsiemens. Just to that instrument, I took it back home, and then I basically compared my EC meter with the one I bought over, and it's a little bit under. So my EC meter always measures a little bit more, like maybe a sixth or a fifth more. So I would say this number would be around 1,000 microsiemens. And I mean, I'm still experimenting with an EC meter. I'm still learning a lot about it, like many of you are probably. So, but for comparison, I had to bring one just to see how active everything is. And then for the fields, of course. So this one measured 780. And Thomas basically told me that the composting process is, well, depending on the outside temperature, but it's basically done in 3 weeks. So, and then on the other side, this is the screening pile. So they use the compost not just for making an extract or a tea. They're also taking the raw compost and when the compost is ready, and spreading this on the field as well. So then we went to a few of his fields, and so picture, like, these are small size fields. So picture 80 acres divided by 5 or 8 strips. That's how small some of the fields are, and that's what they're dealing with. So it is really easy to actually compare to the neighbor, because the neighbor is just 10 meters beside you. And that's what we did. So this is his wheat. And his wheat was at 570. And the neighbors was at 190. And he doesn't know if he spread already fertilizer or not in the spring. So, but he for sure did some composting application on this field. and the numbers are just incredible. And I mean, it was a cold day. It was a cold few days. Like it was a little bit snowing when we actually got there. So Hubmans, they do since 10 years no-till, and a little bit about how they got there. And so no-till was all nice and dandy, but it wasn't quite the answer they were looking for, and it stagnated. So they went to so many conferences, just the way we all did, to look for answers. And they created some compost. I don't know at which point they actually got to know Thomas Köhne, and I know that Thomas went to another farm which had pigs and they composted as well. So I don't really know who came first, but when they started using the compost, things changed, and things changed fast. So they are without fertilizer or fungicide since 3 years. They do still occasionally use a herbicide if it's needed, but not to a yearly degree. It was impressive. Like there was no weed pressure. So this field, for example, with all the corn stubbles, was known to have cleavers on it. So they couldn't grow any canola because cleavers and canola, well, we all know, same size seed. Too much dogage, to a point where they basically stopped growing canola, and they use non-GMO canola over there. But now there is no cleaver pressure. It's gone. Like it's not even in the headlands or in the ditch. We cannot see it. And I was quite impressed with that, because we also on this farm have a cleaver problem. So the structure is absolutely beautiful. We didn't carry a shovel, and this is one thing I know for next time. I have to buy a shovel over there or bring one, because every time I needed one, I hadn't one with me. So that was really unfortunate to dig a little bit deeper. So we didn't have a shovel there. But so we digged in with our hands, which was possible. Nice structure, lots and lots of insect activity. How do you call them? Isopods. Yeah, lots of isopods and spiders and earthworms, you name it, little flies, and all just in nice harmony. And we all read that if you see spiders in your field, you have done something right. So this is the neighbor's field on the right-hand side. And the neighbor already top dressed twice that year, so this year. And this is done beginning of April, this picture. So he already top dressed twice, and he has the same EC than the corn stubble field from Thomas, which he only applied the compost to. So that is very, very impressive. And again, these are just 10 meters apart. So when we went on these fields, I didn't have any mud sticking to my boots. We went to the neighbor, we had mud. That shows you the structure as well. Yeah, so this is to the field tour. This is the extractor. So basically, this is an old water tank or a slurry tank they were gifted to. And it holds 10,000 liters. And so I talked to a few farmers who are trying to the regenerative agriculture approach and who are brewing, and all of them in Europe, they basically heat up the water when they brew to a 27 degrees Celsius, which is really warm. I don't know what this is in Fahrenheit, but it's warm. And I always question it, because we over here are taught that you brew tea at ambient temperature. And when you take warm water and you brew it, of course, you have way faster, way more life in your brew, but then you put it on cold soil and logically, all the biology goes dormant because they're used to the warm conditions. So there's a gentleman over there, and his name is Peter Gockel. He is talking about teas as well. I haven't really looked too deeply into it, all his things, what he does, and I have no idea if he actually presents in English either. I only have seen German YouTube channels so far, so maybe that doesn't help. But there's a Peter Gockel approach, and he basically says no heat and also no molasses because of the oxygen content. So I have not ever heard anything about this before, nor have I seen what he means on YouTube with this. So I'm just stating this, that the molasses in the brew will actually push the oxygen down. Don't know if this is true or not true, but that's what they basically told me. So they're brewing without molasses. And they want to create a stable tea extract, and they are not fixed on this is a tea or this is an extract. They just call it a tea extract. Maybe Peter Gockel calls it a tea extract, but they don't want this definition because we all just wanted a simple way. So they want to create a stable tea extract to take it over to Slovakia, to the other farm. And of course, it's a 200-kilometer way away. And you don't know the conditions when you get there. Is it raining? Is it too windy? I don't know. So they would like to create a stable tea extract they can store for a couple days without any big problems to reactivate it once they're over there. So that's kind of what they're working on. And hopefully, hopefully I'm getting more information on this. So to the tank, so how I said, 10,000 liters, they created a little hole and you can seal it with this door. And when you look through the hole, you see this over here. So there's a floating mechanism, this is the pump. And honestly, I think this is where the air comes out, but I could be completely wrong. I haven't asked that question. But this is what it looks inside. And then these are the, this is the pump. So I just took a picture of it. So you guys take whatever number you need of it, what size of pump they're working with. So this is the extraction. And now this is the marketing. So the marketing is very, very interesting. So they have 3 stores, or they participate in 3 stores. Each store is in a different village. In those villages, grocery stores don't exist anymore. So this is the only way that local people, if they need something really quick and they have maybe a beer or 2 and can't drive far, this is where they can get it. So these stores are open 24/7, and the community provides the space. And these farmers who sell their products in there, they pay for electricity and security. So usually around, they have like 20, 25 farmers putting their products up on a shelf. Each farmer is responsible for their own shelving, and if they need a fridge, that everything is stocked. It's very neat and clean and just a really nice atmosphere in there. One store has, each farmer has a little cash box in front of their products, and basically you pay by trust. There are securities everywhere around in the room, so you can basically see, but so everything is by trust. There is nobody physically in the store except the customer. And The other store, you can see over here, has a computer system, a scale, and you can actually pay with a card, not with only cash. So again, same principle. You have security cameras, you come in, take your products, scan them, or you enter the amount, and then you pay by trust. And Andreas was telling me that they have a theft rate of 3 to 4%, which is apparently the same rate than the grocery stores over there. So not bad, I would say. And so Family Hubman, they create their own cuts. And this department is all Thomas' wife's, Maria Hubman's. So she does the marketing. She is baking the bread, selling the bread. She's responsible for the pasta creation. So they, with their egg production, they sell pastas based on the eggs, like egg noodles. It's a thing over there. The sausages are made by the recipe of Maria Hubman, and yeah, and they sell the eggs as well there. So I found that really intriguing. Of course, in my mind, it was like, oh, this will never work in Wetaskiwin. But again, this is where our mindset comes in, that we put the boulders almost in front of us. I think it's intriguing. They even talked about putting a card system in. So if you want to purchase something, you have to get a customer card, and then you only can get into this store with a card, and then you know who was in there, and you can trace payments as well. That idea I found really intriguing as well. So, and that is basically the end of my presentation. I kept it short, but how I said, I didn't really take a whole bunch of pictures. Hopefully I answered some of your questions. I just can say it was absolutely incredible going down there, seeing it, building this relationship with him, and seeing that we're on the same track here. Like we all have the same problems. Well, and over there, I want to touch base a little bit about the subsidy program in Europe. So the farmers are quite subsidized, and that means they have to follow a lot of rules. This is a lot of paperwork. You almost need, well, depending on the size of farm, but you need an extra hand to just go through all the bureaucracy. And this is not getting any easier. So with the pigs they have, I will just go back to the pigs. So unfortunately, I didn't really take a whole bunch of the compound, but they have all these pens are fenced in, and they're electrically fenced in, and they have a ground wire as well. So if the pigs go out and they root, they cannot get through that fence. And that is mandatory because they are dealing with the African swine flu over there. So outside pigs is actually in many, many regions in Germany, I think almost a big no-no if you don't have the electric fencing. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with. The next thing is, excuse me, the neighbors. So Thomas told me that there is not a week going by that neighbors don't complain to the authorities about them. And of course, that is unfortunately very time consuming, and it doesn't really create a good neighborhood, I find. And there are sometimes, he says, it's even 3-4 times a week that he has to deal with authority and explaining, showing them that they everything do by code, and so on and so forth. So it is, I mean, if you're born and raised over there, this is almost normal, but it slowly gets to a point where a lot of farmers lose, they have no fun. Like my brother-in-laws. I have two brother-in-laws who farm over there, and there is no fun in it anymore. They basically just follow rules. The one son will take over, the other one will not. So yeah, and it's very unfortunate. And when I talk to them about the compost and the earthworms and the pigs, they can see that it works. They see it. I mean, I show them many pictures. They can see that this is an option, but they also see all the bureaucracy they have to get over, all these boulders from the EU, which are set in front of them. So we should consider us very, very lucky that we don't have that yet. We know it is coming, and I think we just need to be smart about this and get prepared to get off our input wagon and do this safely, so we don't create any issues where our neighbors can put finger in our directions and say, oh, they started with these pigs and now we have disease issues or whatever. So these are just my 2 cents here. So I think I will say thank you and we'll answer some questions.
Shorty had a question. How much compost do they put out? What application rates did they put out?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's maybe important. So when they apply the extract, they put out 400 liters an hectare a time. And that they do 2 to 3 times a year. They are still also in the experimental phase. What works, what doesn't work. I really haven't asked them how much compost they put on, because it really depends what they have. Like, is it good compost for tea? They will create a tea. If it's an okay compost, they will just spread it as is on the field. And then there's all the things in between. So they experiment quite a bit. There's no recipe to follow, which is good and bad, because I'm pretty sure you all have questions about that.
How do they classify good compost from bad compost? What's their parameters?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that Thomas wants to actually invest in a biometer. I'm pretty sure they have a microscope. I didn't even ask that question either. But they talked about a microscope. So they do have a microscope. So they look at the microscope and kind of compare what is good, what is bad. It's just I don't think that they actually count everything and say, okay, we have so many spores per view or so many biology per view. I will ask him that again, and I will put it on the Germany chat group, how they do that. And I don't know if Thomas Köhne is on or not. Maybe he can answer that question as well.
I'd like to talk a little bit about why the EC meter and why that is so important. It seems in this whole process that you move to a biological, the only good, well, it's not a good testing method, but the only way that it shows up is in your higher or your elevated electrical conductivity. Going back to testing of compost, guys are doing RNA and DNA, but there's nothing you can make of that. The soil food web, they're counting, but you never know the makeup and what it's going to do in soil. So over the years that I've been involved with this, the only sure sign that your biology is working and going in the right direction is your electrical conductivity will increase and stabilize. This whole biological farming is very, very Wild West type. There isn't good information. It's more artsy. And the only piece of equipment that is really showing that you're going in the right way has been on an EC meter. That's all I have to say. Anybody else have any more questions?
I got a question. So they're growing monocrops, or like they're just growing corn and they're just growing wheat, and then in the winter months they're doing cover crops and baling that up. I'm just, for my own situation, the soil is probably changing a lot because of those cover crops, right? And are those monocrops that they're growing in the season?
So yes and no. They have a few fields with a monocrop on it, and then a few fields where they intercrop and put corn and peas, for example, together. So it always depends for them. So they're doing one and the other. And then the cover crop, cover crops over there are substantial compared to what we can accomplish in the prairies. So they take them off for silage, or they crimp them down and then seed directly into it, or they mow them down, like they take them off for silage, then mow them down, put compost on it, and then seed directly in it. They have all sorts of management methods to deal with it. They give the pigs some green feed, some of the green cut from the cover crops, and the rest will be silaged. It's one of many scenarios what they have. And absolutely, cover crops makes a huge difference. So they haven't really experimented with the calcium. I told them about the GSR calcium and what it did to our soils. So they haven't really experimented with it because you cannot get it over there. And I don't know if they applied any gypsum or any lime, anything like this before, because they do have calcareous soils as well. So yeah, and I wish I had a shovel. That's something that really bugged me, that we didn't have a shovel with us. Hope that answers your question, Mike.
Thank you.
Any other amendments that you know that they use, like liquid fish or humic or anything?
We talked about fish, and we talked about you know what? I don't want to say anything wrong. I will ask them about that, and I will put it in the chat group. Thomas Hubman knows that we're having this conversation right now, so he's just expecting some more questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, going back to before when you said that they don't put molasses in, it reduces the oxygen. Your molasses is a feedstock, and what it does is it makes your biology very, very active. And when your biology gets very, very active, it will utilize the oxygen in the water. So it'll reduce your oxygen very, very quickly. So it's the same with any feedstock, even if you put fish in or any sources for a feedstock for your biology, the activity increases very rapidly and your oxygen levels drop very quickly, so that your shelf life for what you do have in becomes very short if you add in feedstock. So that would be the reason that they don't add the molasses in.
Yeah, hopefully they will share some recipes.
Yeah, they've been playing with, Thomas says that they've been playing with many different additives. Like it said, there is no right and wrong in this. It's more of an artsy, touchy-feely. And anybody that's not on the German WhatsApp, I'm going to start introducing some means and methods of energy testing. What some of the people are, and in doing this, because there is no good testing, on the chemistry world, it's going to be more and more important that we turn to energy testing and start understanding what it is and become more efficient in it. So not only for our soils, but for ourselves also. So yeah, watch with that. I'm just trying to put some stuff together with the help, so that another means and method of testing, it falls in the same line as the homeopathic doctors and stuff like that, just so that we can train and have more methods of testing and seeing what's good and bad to put in our system.
Just a question, maybe it's more for Greg. This was kind of addressed with the cover crops there, but what sort of stuff are they doing once the biology is really thriving in the soil to feed it? Like, can it be just cover crops that are enough to feed the biology in the soil? Or like, I think I remember Thomas saying maybe they go and spread some compost on, and once you get onto that high thriving soil, then what's the steps at that point?
Well, when you get to that high functioning soil, your plants are functioning that much better. So for a measure, your bricks will be higher, so your exudates will be better. So that whole system works better. I'm thinking of the guys in California where they were at. That was in almonds and walnuts. Once they got their soil opened up and the biology functioned, their conductivity was staying around that 700 range. They weren't really doing anything. They were adding a little bit of compost and maybe a little bit of fish. But from what they were doing, once they got it established, they were doing minimal amounts to maintain it.
And were they checking, like, how did they know they needed to do minimal? Like, were they checking for nutrient levels? Were they, like, what indicators did they have saying that once the system was there, they didn't need to put anything on?
They do petioles 2 to 3 times a week.
What's a petiole?
A leaf test,
Like
a tissue test.
Oh, a tissue test. Okay.
Yeah, they weren't using SAP tests, but they were also monitoring they tied the two together in. They were also doing soils tests. They were doing petiole tests, and then they were following the conductivity and everything else. And all the levels were above what everything was recommended, and their yields were very good. Their crops are very healthy. They had no, like, their weed pressures dropped off significantly. They had no insect and fungal issues with their crops. Yeah, their whole system completely changed once they got things. They got the biological system working. What it does is it makes management that much more important. Your management of your farm and of your fields becomes just that much more, and you have to be more involved, walking more fields, taking different samples, just to get feedback, because once you get there, there isn't a whole lot of outside people that are for where we at now that know a whole lot or understand this very well. So it becomes, if you're not comfortable with your own management, this could be very, very difficult for you. But if you like the management and you like creativity, this is the space you want to be in.
I know Jana was kind of talking about like the extract and the extract teas and like how they're brewing it longer. Greg, do you have anything to kind of add on that? Like on how do we get, like if we wanted to stabilize it for a little longer, like what's kind of involved in making it a into something closer to a tea where it's stable?
Like for ourselves, we use citric acid. The pH of 4 is the stabilizing point where about your biology is still there, but it doesn't reproduce it. Their feeding is way down, and they don't damage the whole ecosystem. That was one of the other things to discuss about with your compost pile. Think of your compost pile as an organism without skin. And so with that, you have no limit to the number or the activity that you could get in a compost pile compared to say a cow with a rumen. You're limited with the organs and how the rumen functions, how it digests food. You're limited to the strains of bacteria and fungi and all the biological systems of that cow. Your compost pile, on the other hand, is also a living organism that you have everything interacting, but there's no limit to how active and how complex this could be with the feedstock and when you keep inoculating piles. So then when you go from there to extracting or teas, you have to be aware that adding different feedstocks can change the balance of what that organism that you started with. So there's many different things. And like I said, there's no testing, no right or wrong. This is lots of trial and error, less errors, more successes, trial and successes. How's that?
Jana, I had another question. That big, like fiberglass tank there where that was a brewer. Where was the compost going? Was it going in a tea bag hanging in there, or did they just throw it in there? Did that make sense?
Yeah. So there is this. I cut it out of the picture, unfortunately, to make everything look a little bit better. But there is a little tea egg over here, a metal one. Same principle what Thomas Kuhne is kind of showing us. And I think it's actually from him. And that's, as far as I know, is this what they use, put the compost in, lower it in there, brew it, and take it out.
And then it's just circulating in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have one final question for Jana. After you've seen this, you've walked the field, what is your plans for your farm? You were planning on pigs before? Are you still doing pigs? After seeing this, how has that changed your management plan or your going forward? What's your final thoughts on this?
My final thoughts is, well, we're getting the pen built this week. The pigs are coming. We will start with a small amount, obviously, just to learn and see how we can improve. And then it's full throttle. This works. I'm still a little bit more skeptical on our water source, how much water we can actually provide through the wells. But this is a problem I will think about when we are there, because right now we don't need that much water. And maybe our land doesn't even need so much, because also remember that these fields, they're worked for hundreds and hundreds and even 1,000 years. Like these are old fields. Like our fields are 150 years old, and maybe they are even in better conditions than those fields. Maybe it doesn't take so much mass to get the health back. But I don't know. So no, for us, we will do this. I'm absolutely convinced that this will work. We have to open up our fields now to get a little bit structure in, and then this will be the next step.
Can't read the signs, eh? Big arrows telling you which way to go.
Okay, well, on that, we'll wrap this up. Like we said, anybody that's not on that German page, submit to Cindy or myself, and we'll get you put on the page to share more information. I want to thank you, Jana, for taking your time out of your trip and going and then putting this together to share with the rest of us. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
And guess it's time to get ready to go seeding.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.